Okay, so now we have a couple of records in our database. What we'd like to do is install Firebase on the front end in our View application so we can start to interact with this. So to begin with, I'll go back to the project overview and we want to click on this button which says Add Firebase to your web app. So if we click on this, it's going to give us some instructions to set up Firebase on the front end. So first of all, it says load in this script tag. Now we're not going to do that. We're going to use npm to load in the Firebase library instead, but we are still going to initialize it like this. So grab everything inside this script tag right here, copy that, and we'll go over to our text editor. So first of all, I'm going to create a new folder over here, and this will be called Firebase. And all of our different Firebase configuration files will eventually live in here. So let's right click and create a new file called init.js. This will be the initialization of our Firebase on the front end, and we'll paste in that configuration. So this is just a config object which has a load of different keys in there, API key, auth domain, etc., which tells our application how to connect to our project, our Firebase project at Firebase. Okay, then down here what we're doing is we're saying we want to initialize our app using this config. Now we need to install Firebase into this project. Over here it said do that by adding this script tag. Now we're not going to do that. We're going to use npm to install it, and then what we'll do is import it at the top over here. So in my terminal, I'm not going to exit out of this process because I still want to eventually see this in a browser, but what I will do is start up a new console. So now we have two. We have the node one over here, which is running this local host, and we have the PowerShell one here, which is what we're going to use now to install Firebase. So I like to keep two terminals open like this so we can switch between the two, and I don't have to exit out of the dev server. So first of all, let's cd into Ninja Smoothies. So cd ninja-smoothies. Okay, now we want to install Firebase. So we'll say npm install Firebase, and dependent on the version of npm you may have to say / save. To be honest, it's always best saying that just in case you don't have the npm version which automatically saves these to our dependencies. Okay, so now that Firebase is installed on the front end over here, it means we can now import it into this file. So we'll do that at the top. We'll say import Firebase from, and it's just a module called Firebase. Okay, so we needed to install that because we reference it down here where we initialize our app and pass in the config. Now what we're going to do is actually store this in a variable, or a constant rather, and we'll call this Firebase app. Set that equal to firebase.initializeApp with the config. Now, the reason that we're going to do that is because we then want to initialize the Firestore function on this Firebase app. Because Firestore, remember, is our database. We need to initialize that. So, first of all, let's import it at the top. We'll say import Firestore from, and then it's Firebase / Firestore. So this is the Firestore section of the Firebase library. We're importing that as well. So down here what we can do is we can say we want to export the Firestore database. And the reason we want to export it from this file is so that in other files later on we can import it and then interact with the database. So we'll say export default Firebase app, which is this thing we just created here, which initializes our app. Then we'll use the Firestore function on that to say we want to export the database section of this Firebase app, so that then when we export this now, we can import it from another file, and then when we import it in that file, we can use that import to interact with our database, retrieve information or save information to it. And we'll see exactly how we can do that in the next video. Hey gang, it's Sean here from the future with a quick update, because since recording these videos, the Firebase team have updated the Firestore API slightly, and they've done that to add a new timestamp class to represent timestamp fields in the database. Now, by doing that, the knock-on effect is that we get a big fat red error in our browser console. Now, you may have seen this, you may have not seen this. It depends on which version of Firebase you have installed in your application. If you have version 4.13 and above, you probably will see this error if we ever try to use the Firestore. If you have something below that, you probably won't. Either way, all we need to do to get rid of that error is add in one line of code inside this initialization file init.js where we initialize our Firestore application. So where we see const firebase app equals firebase.initialize app, and then inside config, we want to come below that, then paste in this line of code. We take the Firebase app, then we get the Firestore, .settings, and inside the settings function, you pass in this one object. Now inside this object, we pass in one property, and that property is timestamp in snapshots, camel case, and we set that equal to true. So by doing this, we're going to get rid of that big error that we see in the console every time we try to use the Firestore. Now, this code is not going to have any effect on any of the other code that we write inside this project or any of the other projects we do in this series, but it is going to get rid of that error if you are seeing it.